The Ghost Pipeline, Crypto and State War Chests. The screen is black, then a single, flickering green line appears. A heartbeat monitor flatlining for a crucial second before spiking wildly. October 12, 2021. A secure server farm somewhere beneath the Baltic Sea goes silent. Not a power failure, not a hack, but a deliberate, surgical severing of a single data stream that carried the equivalent of $3 billion in untraceable digital assets. The question that haunted intelligence agencies for weeks was not who initiated the kill switch, but where those funds were routed in the milliseconds before the shutdown. They had built a ghost pipeline, a digital bypass around every known financial surveillance system on Earth. How did a network designed to evade governments end up being the perfect tool for them? We thought the age of digital sovereignty belonged to the decentralized idealists. We were wrong. The true power of cryptocurrency wasn't anonymity, it was plausible deniability, weaponized by the very entities sworn to regulate it. This is the story of the slush fund that shouldn't exist, the digital hoard that powers shadow operations, and the quiet transformation of a revolutionary technology into the ultimate state secret. The Satoshi Cipher. It started, as revolutions often do, with a white paper and a promise of transparency, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The early adopters saw a libertarian dream, a fortress against inflation and overreach. They mined blocks, they trusted the code, they celebrated the immutable ledger. But while the idealists were building castles in the cloud, others were looking at the underlying mathematics and seeing something far more practical. A perfect smuggling route. Imagine a transaction, not in dollars, not in euros, but in ephemeral packets of encrypted data moving across borders faster than light. A state actor, let's call them the Hand, needs to move substantial resources for a sensitive initiative, something requiring absolute operational silence. Bank wires leave trails, SWIFT codes scream international scrutiny, and physical cash is cumbersome and traceable. So the Hand doesn't use the obvious rails. They use the rails built by the rebels. The breakthrough wasn't in creating the coin, it was in creating the obfuscation layer above it. They didn't invent Bitcoin, they engineered a bespoke mixing service, quantum-resistant, operating on decentralized, autonomous organizations that existed only on paper and in encrypted chat rooms. This wasn't about privacy coins. This was about creating a black box ledger so complex, so computationally expensive to audit, that even the most advanced state intelligence apparatus would hit a wall of plausible complexity. Every deposit, every withdrawal appeared random, a chaotic murmur in the global noise. They needed entry points, not major exchanges. Those are watched by regulators breathing down the neck of compliance officers. They needed the micro-laundering hubs, small, unregulated digital casinos operating in jurisdictions with weak extradition treaties. A few $1,000s deposited legally, spun through 10 different wallets in 10 different time zones, and then coalesced. This slow, painstaking process, the digital equivalent of siphoning oil drop by drop, was the cost of true invisibility. It took time, months sometimes, but the result was liquid, verifiable state capital, clean and ready for deployment. The initial challenge was volume. How do you turn $1 million of illicit crypto into 10 billion without triggering automated alarm? The zero-day exchange. The solution lay in exploiting the inherent greed of the market itself. They didn't try to fool the regulators directly. They fooled the miners. A specific, obscure altcoin, one popular only among a niche group of tech speculators who valued high volatility over stability, became their primary vehicle. The Hand began purchasing this coin, not in large blocks that would move the price, but in thousands of tiny, perfectly timed micro-purchases, mimicking the activity of a dedicated, if eccentric, retail investor. Then, the critical move. They identified a decentralized exchange, a place where trading occurred peer-to-peer, without a central governing body. They didn't need to bribe the administrator, they needed to bribe the liquidity providers. Through encrypted messages offering astronomical returns for short-term lending of stablecoins, they essentially created their own private, high-speed trading floor within the public infrastructure. The system worked like this. They'd dump large volumes of the altcoin onto this private exchange, triggering panic selling among the providers whose collateral was suddenly threatened. At the precise moment of maximum volatility, the hand would buy back the original stablecoins at pennies on the dollar, instantly converting billions of volatile assets back into reliable, digital currency, all while appearing as a single, highly aggressive, but ultimately legitimate market player. The noise created by the panic masked the massive capital transfer. It was market manipulation leveraged by operational secrecy. Every keystroke felt like a gamble against global finance, but for the operators it was just routine data entry, accompanied by the faint, almost subliminal sound of cooling fans in a secure room. This brought them to the critical juncture: the storage. Storing billions in a single blockchain address is an invitation to theft. They needed redundancy, but not the transparent redundancy of a multi-signature wallet where the signatures are visible. They needed fragmentation. The dead drop protocol. The keys to the kingdom weren't stored on a hard drive or even printed on paper. They were diced, algorithmically fractured into thousands of segments, each segment encrypted with a different layer of public key cryptography. These segments were then physically distributed across the globe, embedded in seemingly innocuous objects. A segment woven into the backing fabric of a tapestry in a Lisbon antique shop. A segment stored on a specialized micro SD card disguised as a decorative button on a uniform in a decommissioned military base in the Balkans. The protocol for reassembly, the master key, was never digitized. It was a sequence of human actions, a choreography of physical movements synchronized to global events. To unlock the funds, the operators didn't need a password. They needed to know the exact time the sun crested the horizon over a specific unnamed island in the South Pacific, combined with the real-time atmospheric pressure reading from a defunct weather satellite relay station in the Andes. It was absurdly complicated, designed to fail catastrophically if any single component was compromised or coerced. This is where the pipeline became truly ghostly. The operational funding wasn't moving in real time, it was being pre-positioned. A state operation in a contested region needed immediate funding for resources, say advanced surveillance equipment purchased locally, paid for in a region-specific digital currency that had no international ties. The hand would initiate the dead drop protocol. The pre-positioned keys would align, the calculation would trigger, and within minutes the exact sum required, down to the last Satoshi, would appear in a temporary, disposable wallet accessible only by the receiving agent on the ground. The source of the funds was untraceable because the transfer was instantaneous and purely cryptographic, triggered by a set of environmental factors no human could predict or force. The intelligence community watched the digital breadcrumbs leading to the Baltic Sea server farm, convinced they were closing in on the ultimate source of illicit state funding. They tracked the addresses, they analyzed the patterns of the altcoin pumps, but they kept missing the crucial element: the physical keys. They were searching for code when the real lock was made of dust and sunlight. IV. The breach and the silence. That brings us back to October 12, 2021, the moment the stream went dead. The operators had pushed the envelope too far, moving a sum that triggered a rare, automated cross-referencing protocol within a global watchdog AI, an AI designed not to track criminals, but to flag anomalous state behavior. The signal wasn't a trace, it was a tripwire. When the shutdown occurred, it wasn't a hostile takeover. It was self-immolation. The operators, realizing the pipeline was momentarily visible, triggered the kill switch, sacrificing the immediate transfer but protecting the master keys. The $3 billion vanished, not into another wallet, but scattered into so many microfragments across the network that attempting to aggregate them now would require more computational power than existed on the planet, or worse, require the operators to initiate the dead drop protocol again, revealing their location. The pursuit shifted from tracking money to tracking the environmental triggers. Intelligence agencies began monitoring weather patterns, deep-sea pressure gauges, and solar flare activity, the inert, physical components of the key. They were trying to reverse engineer the sun's shadow. The knowledge gap we faced wasn't about who had the money. It was about why they needed such an extreme level of untraceability for their war chest. Was it espionage? Influence operations? Or something far more destabilizing? The answer, whispered only in the deepest levels of classified analysis, was control over emerging, unstable territories, funding insurgencies, buying technological silence, and preparing for a future where traditional geopolitical power was irrelevant. The Ghost Pipeline isn't just a story of digital theft, it's the blueprint for the next century of state conflict. The ledger is still out there, decentralized, immutable, and holding billions in reserve. And somewhere, someone is waiting for the precise convergence of atmospheric pressure and dawn light to begin spending it again. The silence from the Baltic Sea server farm isn't a sign of failure, it's the sound of a weapon being reloaded.